Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the first webinar for the New American Remodel 2023. My name is Caroline Broderick, and I am the managing editor for Pro Remodeler magazine. We are a magazine for residential remodelers, home improvement professionals, and we serve them through events, our magazine, daily online content, podcasts, and the occasional webinar here and there. We're also the official remodeling media partner for that National Association of Home Builders. So each year, the NAHB picks a standout project to call one of its show homes. That's the New American Home and the New American Remodel. So these homes feature modern day designs, beautiful designs that stand out so you can learn something from them, so you could bring your clients the best product and the best services. So today, before we begin, I would love to thank our sponsors, Kohler and Sherwin-Williams. So this year's New American Remodel features a 7,300 square foot family home. It's located in Winter Park, Florida, which is just right outside Orlando. And as you can see here, it is surrounded by many lakes, so a fantastic location for a view. In today's webinar, we'll dive into the New American Remodel 2023's before and after in terms of design and performance. We'll learn some insights into how Phil Kean and his team reworked a complicated floor plan. We'll learn how energy consultant Drew Smith creates a plan of attack for retrofitting homes. And we'll talk more in depth about some of the products and systems used in this specific home that meet both design and performance goals. So a little housekeeping before we jump into it. You will see there is a Q&A function on your lower bottom there. If you have a question on anything either one of our presenters today says, feel free to pop that into the Q&A. If we don't answer it as the webinar is going on, we also have a allotted time at the very end where we can go through the separate Q&A. So keep that in mind and be sure to put in some questions. So I'd love to introduce the two main players for you all today. Phil Kean, the architect. Phil Kean is owner of Phil Kean Design Group, an internationally recognized architect, contractor, interior designer, certified green professional, and he's a very familiar face with the NAHB show homes. He's worked on numerous New American homes and remodels, and his award-winning company's work reflects his signature approach to integrating natural elements and the surrounding environment, creating seamless transitions of indoor and outdoor living spaces that are truly his hallmark. And we have our energy consultant, Drew Smith, who is also a familiar face to our NAHB show homes. He is the first and current governor-appointed Green Building Commissioner for the state of Florida and chairman of the Florida Building Commission Energy Technical Advisory Committee. His company's name is Two Trails, Inc., and he's the COO. So as an active member of the NAHB, he serves as its national director and on the Green Board of Directors and Energy and Green subcommittees. He's also the state director for the Florida Home Builders Association and the founding president and current board member for the Florida Green Building Coalition. And his resume includes several more current and former leadership positions in important industry associations and organizations. So Drew, Phil, welcome. Thank you for giving us your time today to lead this conversation and give everyone some really great insights.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's start with the before. Phil, take it away. Talk to us a little bit about how this home came to you and the home in its original state.
So this was a house. So the homeowners came to me. I had a house that I had designed and built that they had put an offer in on, and it fell through. So they decided to find a house and create their own dream. So this was a house on a lake in Winter Park. It's on an oversized lot by Winter Park standards. And the house was actually a show house about 20 years ago. And so the house had been updated at that time, but had been sort of a bizarre update. It was very dark and heavy, which was popular at that moment in time. And this is the kitchen. The kitchen wasn't connected to any of the other house. It actually, you had to step up steps to get to the kitchen from the dining room or the family room. So it was disconnected from the way people live today. And maybe even when it was remodeled 20 years ago. But that said, the house had It had really very little connection to the beautiful lake. It was kind of heavy and dark, and um, big rooms and undersized rooms, and the scale of some of the spaces was really off. So it was just a hodgepodge. I mean, you had to walk down into the dining room. In this particular picture, you can see. So the entry, you had to walk either up or down depending on where you were going in the house. So there was lots of level changes. That was one of our first things to resolve and to remedy. So you can see that sort of heavy 20-year-old kind of heaviness. I mean, literally everything they saw in the house, they said that can all go in the trash, so we actually donated it, so it didn't go in the trash. But that said, it was not their taste. What they loved was this lake and the big yard, and it had a grandfathered in. It was an old carriage house that had an apartment above it, and they had enclosed the lower level and made it into like a party room or something originally. So one of the things we did was to open it back up for additional garage storage and toy storage, and redesign the apartment above. The pool itself was also something that got removed and with redesign.
Great. Thank you, Phil. And Drew, talk to us a little bit about the performance and what was in the house prior.
Sure. Originally it did have some features that were nice, which was it had some original spray foam insulation. Windows were not up to par. They were outdated, of course. As time goes on and things get updated, so do the performance of windows and doors. And it had a couple of great features like the central vacuum system, but most of the lighting was still incandescent, or some was CFL. But things that needed to be updated were not only what you saw superficially, but also behind the wall. So we look at performance, we look at windows, we look at insulation values, and how can we improve that when we have the opportunity, since we're taking this house basically to the bare walls and basically starting with a raw frame. We could improve the insulation values. We could improve its leakage. When we did testing on the house and our original evaluation of the house, it was fairly leaky. We were coming in with a HERS index of about an 83, which is only 17% better than the base code house. It did have a tankless gas water heater, but the air conditioning systems were out of date, very old, and needed retrofitting. And replacing the pool pump, same thing. The new pool pumps that we're putting in are Energy Star rated, and these were very inefficient. It was dated, and a lot of the equipment, because it's older, is also going to use a lot more energy. And so we're looking at how do we bring this house to a more efficient energy consumption, make it healthier, make it a better indoor air quality living space for the client, and as well as the exterior, and how do we improve the maintenance and reduce the amount of maintenance on the home, and by using different type of products and making it a lot more durable and sustainable as a new product. So Phil and his team, we do a lot of work with Phil, and every home he builds, we typically are being certified to NGBS, the National Green Building Standard, and we don't have to worry a whole lot. I know when we work with Phil and his team, it's from ground zero. I know that Phil's already designing it with that in mind, so it makes it a very easy transition for us. In a house like this, especially as large as it is, we want to make sure we can bring those energy and utility bill costs down, as well as now look at the new indoor air quality issues, as more people are living at home more. And we want to make sure we can literally address everything that the client's concerns address as well, when we're doing a home like this. So the importance is doing the before testing before the demo starts. So we have ground zero and we know where we're going with the process and the design process, knowing how to move it to the future and through the design by having a benchmark of here's where we're starting with and here's where we're going to end up with, so that we can actually show the homeowner the improvements that were made and add value to what they actually did as far as the improvement changes to the home.
Fantastic. Thank you, Drew. And so Phil, talk to us a little bit about some of the design goals that you had for this home.
So the homeowner was from the Chicago area and came back one day with a whole bunch of pictures they had taken of homes in and around their home that they liked. So that was sort of the thought process on how we get, and they wanted it a little modern, they wanted it, but not too modern. And but the big goal was to really capture the views of the outside and really bring that beautiful lakefront experience into their house. And so we opened up the rear of the house and really put in large expanses of glass and expanded the rear lanai so that it was more functional and they could enjoy it. Again, there were level changes on the back of the house, so we leveled it all out, brought the kitchen down, and really created a much more functional, better flow for the house. There was a room upstairs that you had to climb up 3 steps to get to, so we lowered that. And I mean, it was just a series of odd transitions throughout the house. So that was part of the big challenge was, how do we lower floors or raise floors, or and so it was really a rethinking of the entire structure, and still keeping the bones in place. So that was really interesting, unique for us. And then we took out walls, opened it all up. It was dark and very compartmentalized, and that was one of the first things we did. The stair was this really tight entry stair. We moved it to another part of the house that was more easy to access and was more gracious for everyday living. And underneath this really tight stair was this tiny powder room that serviced the entire first floor. So in moving things around and freeing things up, we could really take advantage of the view, and take it and improve the flow and have a current floor plan that lives for today's lifestyle. And I think that was really the big goal. And it was on every level. So it was like literally the master bedroom had one window that looked out to the lake. And so we put French doors and large window openings, so that they can enjoy the lake from their master. But you can sort of see this is a view through the front door after we've done the design. And you can see how we took these little doors and did a whole wall of glass, and all of those doors pocket away. And so you have this lovely indoor-outdoor experience to the outside. And then we have those motorized screens that drop down and allow that space to be opened when it's buggy, or all of those things. So it was really about the experience of living inside and outside on a lake in this beautiful park-like setting.
Great. And I'm excited to dive more into kind of those design as well as we get through here. And Drew, talk to us about some of those energy goals for the home.
Sure. The most important thing is, how do we reduce the utility bills? What do we do on the energy side to improve what's already there? We don't want to rip out spray foam if spray foam's in place, but how do we increase the R value? How do we get to the best possible HERS index and green and sustainability on the NGBS side score that we could. I mean, our goal was to try to hit NGBS gold. We haven't done our final inspections yet, so everything we talk about today is preliminary and targeted, but nothing is finally confirmed yet. So what we did was we added, we were able to add 5 foil to the inside of a lot of these cavities to increase the R value to get us to a much more energy efficient space, especially, on the block walls, we added 5 foil. The walls that we had that were framed, if they didn't have spray foam, we added spray foam, and we did whatever we could to increase our values to a more up-to-date and more efficient number. Doing everything we can as far as also, new windows were all added, so that really helped our energy efficiency. You notice with a lot of the design that Phil incorporated, the overhangs became much larger, especially in the back. Even though we've got all those large sliding glass doors in the back, they've got a large overhang covering them, so they really help shade the space and also shade the doors to keep our energy bills down. Of course, we looked at all the air conditioning systems and bringing a much more efficient system in with new carrier systems, and indoor air quality issues such as, how do we manage the filtration of the home. And so we handled all that with being able to ventilate the space and bring fresh air in on a controlled basis and have it filtered and dehumidified, so that the space was now one that was a healthier environment to live in. So all of those are, kind of the big picture things. We wanted to make sure that we did what we could to help the homeowners, final results become a lot more energy efficient.
Fantastic. But, as it goes with any remodel, there are some very interesting challenges with this project that really put your team to the test, Phil. So maybe talk to us about some of those really significant design challenges.
Well, during the construction, we had a fairly major hurricane that came through the Central Florida area, and the water from the lakes were really, really high, and created some problems for us. It also created problems for getting materials and getting, so it wasn't just that the water was there. It was trees that came down. It was delayed shipments. It was labor that, left and never came back. Just lots and lots of things that happen when you have a major hurricane. And then the rebuilding of people who had major damage. So now supplies that were already hard to get became even more difficult to get. So we were challenged in lots and lots of ways to try to get this house to a closed in and finalized for our client. And in the process, we just that life happens.
A very unique kind of challenge to go through, very intense, but obviously everything ended up okay. And so now we can talk a little bit about some of the changes that have been made and really dive deep into these different areas. So Phil, maybe let's start with the front elevation, then we can move to the rear in the pool house. Talk to us about the design here, the elements you have here, everything front elevation.
Well, you can sort of see that the original house had this sort of a 20-year-old remodel. So it had somebody that actually spent some money and time to think about this. But this was probably the 4th remodel. It was a smaller house that had been remodeled, and then an addition was done to it, and that was remodeled. And so this was actually a show house about 20 years ago. So I remember walking through it when it was first constructed, when everything was, brand new, and thinking, oh, this is a cool house. Now, 20 years later, um, you can see it. We moved the entry. So if you look at the original, the entry was over sort of more in the center. And they had, see that little piece that was poked out? That actually was a room that was taller than the rooms around it. And that was the only window in that weird little room. So we kind of leveled out the floors, moved the entry over where the stairs were by the front door. We actually moved it over to the left, where you can see that sort of squared off area. The stairs fell into that part of the house. So that was off the entry. And what that allowed me to do is to take all that square footage that was behind the entrance and make the master bedroom really luxurious, because it had a tiny closets, a small bathroom, and the powder room was non-existent. So by moving that all over, it really made that first floor better. And then we took the 2-story space that was above that entrance behind that door. I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but it did to me. And we put a floor in it, and then we took all the walls out, and we had this loft area that looked over the great room out to the lake behind it. So you can sort of see where the house, the bones of the house are pretty much there. We just cleaned up angles and cleaned up roof lines and simplified things, but you can see the garages didn't move. The big change was really cleaning up this sort of frou-frou that was done in the 20 years ago, and sort of making it a little bit more current, contemporary, a little Midwestern-y kind of traditional. So that's the front of the house.
Yeah, it's something that you can't really tell by looking at the images. There's a lot of different materials here. You have some metal roofing, there's some stone, some tongue and groove siding. So is this, I understand you said the homeowners walked around kind of their area, took some photos, sent them to you. Is that where this kind of inspiration came from, or talk to us more about that?
Yeah, so they came back from just went around their neighborhood or different neighborhoods in their area, and took photographs of homes they really liked, that they thought would be beautiful, and maybe just that reminded them of where they've lived for most of their lives. And so there's a little element of history for them that I brought into this home. I was speaking to the homeowner just recently, and he said, I'm really, we did not miss on that thing that we designed, that piece that was really important to us. It's like we have a home run. So the homeowner is just thrilled with this, the way the house is turning out in this elevation, and it's traditional, but not so traditional. It's got a little edge to it, which I think they love. Brought in some stone and some softer colors, and so everything was thought through. I mean, the homeowners were extraordinarily involved in the whole process. I mean, they were probably there as much as we were.
Wow,
and
that's great.
they still live in Chicago, so they would fly in and come in and spend the whole weekend in the house.
Wow. And so going to the rear, then there was a lot done back here. So kind of talk to us about, you had mentioned some things done to the pool house, done to the lanai here. And then I know there was a lot done too with the landscaping.
Yes. So the original house, it really did not open up to the rear like it should have. It was it was sort of typical of 20 years ago, where we have a porch, but it's too small to put a dining table on it, or it's too small to really make, what are we going to use it for? And the connection to the yard was a very small, tiny set of stairs. And so what we did is we tried to make this whole transition from the house to the garden much more inviting and much more visually inviting. So walls of glass were put in. An extended porches and lanai area was put in. The pool, while most people would have said that's a great pool, I think they wanted something that felt more contemporary, more in scale of the house. And so the pool was ripped out and a new pool was put in. And then we couldn't do anything to the grandfathered guest cottage house, we were had to be very careful about all of the decisions we did because it was not compliant to today's codes as far as setbacks. So if we had gone over a certain amount of restoration, we would have had to take the thing down. So every step of that was a challenge to make sure we didn't go beyond what was allowed. But we opened it up again and made it more functional for how they wanted to use this space. And I think they love it. They love it.
Fantastic. And obviously, Phil, being where you are in Florida and your expertise of connecting indoors to outdoors, nowadays that is so important to homeowners everywhere, not just, in Florida. So here you can see a little bit of the lanai before and what you did after. It looks like you made some serious changes here to the interior to really allow yourself to maximize the exterior, right? So maybe walk us through a few of these changes we see here in this breakfast nook and this bathroom.
Well, you can see that the access from the kitchen breakfast area, you had to go through a powder room, or you had to go down the steps into the living room to get out to the porch. So those are your two access points from the public space. There was a small door in a small closed off sitting room from the master bedroom that got you out to that space. But there was no cohesiveness in the sense that this is where you would grill or cook, or people love to cook. And what this doesn't show you is there's steps on this covered lanai that split it up. So the half over by the powder room was taller than the half over by the where the words say covered lanai. So what we did is we expanded the area and created a summer kitchen and a nice big outdoor living space, and really opened up this whole living experience.
Great. And so this is kind of what you can expect after. Just like you said, Phil, you can see right there into the kitchen, a lot easier access than what was there before with the powder room. So kind of inside the house now, this is the floor plan, as you can see before. So kind of talk to us about these big picture issues here, just kind of looking at the floor plan.
So if you start with the entry had this sort of turrety kind of stair, and it really, you can see how tiny that little powder room is there. It was just, literally the door height was not even a normal door height to get in there. And if you were over 6 feet, that room would have just been horrific. And so, and then the master bath and the bathroom and all that space was kind of tight. And so we sort of demoed all of the master bathroom closets, all of that space. And where the dining room is now, we made that the new entry. And so we moved all of that space that was where the foyer is into the master suite. So we gained all of that space. And then there was steps up, although you don't really see it, there's a step up at the hallway. And that was the only way to get up to your kitchen. And all of that was walled in. So that whole side of the living room was kind of walled in. And it was just this really tight bottleneck there at that back stair. Can you I'm sure you can sort of visualize it. But that was your only way to get to the kitchen and to your pantry, to your laundry. But it was a series of these steps up and down. And at the foyer level, you had to step down to the dining room and down to that hallway. So here you are going up and down and up and down, just moving through the space. And I thought that was a terrible experience of living in this house. So even though somebody thought it was beautiful 20 years ago, to me, it was the one thing. If you ever lived in a house with a step, you know, somebody's going to trip on that. So, and who wants to be carrying food and trip down that little step to go to the dining room? So there was some design flaws. Plus, the fireplace blocked some of the view out to the, you see those little angles, those were the angled fireplaces, one outside and one inside. So we got rid of those right away because they weren't beautiful to begin with and they blocked our view.
And so we're looking at the floor plan after, just as you said, shifting that foyer over and really opening things up here.
Yes. So so what we did is we took out all the walls between the living room and the kitchen, and we moved the dining room out towards the lakeside. So it's sort of an eat-in dining area into the kitchen that opens out to the summer kitchen. Moving the foyer over allowed us to do a really large master bathroom, big closets, more interesting ceiling details. We did a front porch, you know, a really nice one that they could sit out on, which was sort of something that they really was important to them. So while the foyer seems oversized, it was used they used it as their music area. So we really just cleaned up the space. So when you walked in the front door, you looked all the way through the house to the lake, across the pool, and really got this sort of beautiful sense. You can sort of see the stairs being moved over to the side, and the walls are gone between the kitchen and the great room. The great room had that 2-story space. We opened up all the walls in the second floor so that loft could look through those windows above the sliders there. And by moving the fireplace to that wall, we got rid of blocking the view, but also it became engaged with the kitchen, so that if you were in the kitchen, and I think they're putting a TV on that wall, which is typical, but that they could see the TV from the kitchen. And so that you can just see how more open this plan feels and how more current it feels. You can look back and see how we moved the stairs to this little area here. Put in a new mud room. They didn't really have a decent mud room. It just brought it up to what people want to do today. Added some beams and just sort of, you know, got rid of that heaviness that was in the original design. I think it turned out really beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Experience, just like you said, that seems like the goal for everything here. Your experience flowing through the home, especially as they have 3 children, correct? So this is a family's home. Flowing through that, experiencing the outside, having that available kind of at any point. You surely accomplished that here. And so here, just like you said, you could see the kitchen connects to the outside. You have a lot of similar elements and color schemes that you see from the exterior kind of connecting into the interior as well, which is a nice balance.
Yes. And you know, they're not formal, so they did not need a formal dining room. They wanted their dining room when they're eating to be able to see the lake. So that was sort of I think a great solution for, you know, so now you can look through the dining room out past the lanai to the pasture pool to the lake. So it's all visually connected all the way through the house. And then the upstairs, this is a second floor. You can see that, you know, see where that area is open to below. And that bedroom number 3, you had to step up to get to that little room. And I don't know if you remember when I was talking about this tiny little window in this room. That room had the tiniest little window. I don't even know if it met code. But you can see the window in the theater room was tiny. The bedroom 4 had a nice view and bedroom 2 had a nice view. But you know, it was just the bathrooms were small. we just thought that if we could open up bedroom 3 and put a floor over this open to below area, we could look across that room, that big room, and see the lake from that loft. So that was the inspiration for this space. And that's what we did. We took the old theater room and turned it into another bedroom. Did the loft, so if they wanted to watch TV up there, they could, but open it up so they could see the lake from that room. Did essentially bedroom 2 and 4 stayed the same, but we gained a bedroom. Well, we didn't gain, we just moved rooms around so that so every room on this floor has a view except for the old theater room. So we won't say who their favorite children are, but Kyle did not get a view in this room. Kyle, I hope you're not listening.
And so this is kind of what it looked like in progress. So you could see where actually some of those dark elements, like the dark beams were, those walls initially kind of blocking that beautiful view outside, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see the windows were, very small. I mean, it just felt dark, it didn't feel like this house had this beautiful view. It was just sort of like there was this beautiful view and then there was a house. Like it didn't really take advantage of what the potentials of the house could be.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the loft, how we opened it up. So this was like, originally it was that 2-story entry, and now it's the bedroom and the entry space. So this is sort of a gathering space for the kids just outside of downstairs.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Before we move on to Drew talking a little bit more about energy, Phil, were there any kind of last comments you wanted to make or notes about the design of the home?
The house had good bones. I mean, in spite of the quirkiness, it was the level changes that were the most disturbing, but the bones of the house were good. They were good. I mean, and with any remodel, there were some of the walls weren't square and some of the floors were not level, and you just deal with an old house. So that was just part of remodeling, but it's stunning.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. So thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
Drew, talk to us about some of these considerations you had to make before kind of having this plan of attack and improving this home, it being in Florida, some of your general goals, and kind of this house as a system concept.
Well, you mentioned Florida, and that's one of the first things we always consider is the hot, humid climate. How do we keep the heat and the humidity out? How do we keep the air conditioning running as efficiently as possible? And a lot of that has to do with some of what I spoke about before with the type of insulation. How do we improve the insulation? How do we improve the window efficiencies and get those in place first so that we then can address the air conditioning? Because we don't want to throw too much air conditioning on it just to cool the house. We want to make sure that the envelope is as tight and as energy efficient as possible. So those are some of the goals that we're always looking at is, when talking to Phil and the team is, what else can we do to make the efficiency better? I know on the block walls, we injected foam into the block so that we could get a much higher R factor on the CMUs. So we ended up with an R12.1 on the block walls. The frame walls, again, they were already sprayed. We just made sure that, excuse me, any new walls were also insulated the same way, and just tightened everything up. Excuse me for a second. And we're in high allergy season here in Florida, so I apologize, but pollen is crazy in our area. So part of our goals were, how do we get the HERS index and the energy efficiency as good as we possibly can without adding solar? Because the client didn't consider, doesn't really want to do solar at this point, but we wanted to drive those numbers down. So we looked at, like I said, the location is the location, and we can't really change the house as far as where it is. We just have to deal with how do we address with the design, keeping those numbers as low as possible. So we're energy modeling the house throughout the design process. So when something new comes up, we plug this into our software, and we can on a few minutes notice be able to see where and how that's going to affect the energy consumption on the house. So we're always looking at, if we pick this window, or we pick this door, or we pick this air conditioning system, how is that going to affect our energy rating, and how do we drive that number down without it adding additional cost as well? So we're always looking at do this in a way that it brings back a good ROI, because at the end of the day, the client is going to want a good return on their investment, and not just throw a lot of money on something just to possibly help what they're doing, but not getting to that most positive goal that they possibly can. So the other thing we look at is the house as a system. It's real important to not micromanage or micromanage, look at one item at a time. We want to look at the entire house, how it's going to function and breathe and work as a system once it's totally completed and constructed. So we want to make sure that there's good airflow, that we've got the right ventilation system, that the right size vents are in the right rooms, that we've got all of these type of measures in place, so that it not only architecturally functions well, but it functions well from the energy side, from the healthy indoor air quality side, from the sustainability side, so that all of these play in concert. So there are things that affect, like even things like floors and ceiling heights affect how the air flows through the house. So all of that comes into play, the duct sizing, and how do we get air conditioning from one room to another. When you're retrofitting like this, you don't have the luxury of designing in troughs for air conditioning ducts. You're dealing with existing trusses and existing floor systems that are in place. And sometimes we have to look at how do we get there from here with air conditioning when you start tearing things out and you start opening things up. And so we work with the design team to, how do we solve those issues and still get a very comfortable indoor space, and so that there's no hot spots in the air conditioning system, and that there's good airflow, there's good lighting throughout the house. All of those play into the design.
Absolutely. And it all kind of starts with an analysis, right? Kind of an energy audit. Where are you starting from? So I know some of these images you took of the original home. So talk to us kind of about this, getting that base level to start.
Well, our snapshot of our initial analysis is we call it a pre-HERS index, but it also entails a total evaluation of all of the plumbing fixtures, all of the lighting fixtures, the insulation, the windows, everything that's existing that might have to do with sustainability. And all of those data points are recorded, and then they're plugged into our software. So that becomes our baseline. So we're wanting to be able to show at the end of the day that the new home has reduced energy costs, has reduced water consumption, that it has a higher R value, and that the return on investment is definitely going to be there for the client at the end of the day. And what does that do, and what does that mean to the client after everything is said and done? And so the energy modeling, or our initial energy consulting and analysis, then goes into what we call energy modeling software, which then we use as a basis to help the design team, Phil and his team, come up with or make the proper decisions throughout the design process so that we are hitting our target, or is the best target that we can hit with regard to our certification and also our low energy costs.
Mhm. So you're plugging everything initial into this energy modeling software. What areas in that output do you look at first to kind of create an attack to, hey, let's adjust this area, let's focus here? What are some of those kind of priority areas?
We look at what's behind the walls first, because what's behind the walls really matters. It's not something you can change tomorrow. There are other things that you can retrofit at a later date. You can change plumbing fixtures later or what have you. But what's behind the walls, once those walls are opened up, we want to improve it to the best possible values that we can while the walls are opened up. So we look at windows, we look at air conditioning, and we look at insulation. Those are the three priorities. From there, then we can get into more of the smaller details with regard to energy efficiency. But those, we start there. We know where we're based at and what we've originally had to work with, and what we can do, what can we do to make it better and drop our energy loads.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we're always targeting this particular snapshot as the testing results of the blower door test at the beginning of before the demo. And so we don't have final numbers now, but I'm pretty confident that Phil has got a really tight envelope out there right now. Hopefully we'll get out there in the next few weeks to do some final testing on the home. But we are targeting a HERS index of 53. That's kind of what, or 552, I'm sorry, is what we're really expecting the number to come in close to. And we're still shooting for a National Green Building certification score of gold. So we're pretty optimistic we're going to get there. The house is a system, you know, as I had mentioned, it really incorporates everything. We're looking at, like I said, windows, insulation, air conditioning, water heating. What do we do? What can we do to improve it? The nice trend of the way things are designed right now with minimal use or no use of carpet really helps us on the indoor air quality side as well as on the energy side, because hard surface floors in Florida are much more energy efficient than carpet. Carpet seems to absorb a lot more heat, and the hard surface floors stay cooler longer. So we look at all of those little type of nuances throughout the house, the lighter colors on the exterior, lighter colors on the interior, where you can minimize the use of lights during the day. All that plays into that energy efficiency side of what we're working with throughout the design process.
Mm-hmm. And it's helpful too. I know, obviously, Drew, Phil, you've both worked together on many, many projects, and Phil has a great understanding too of all these concepts, right, Drew? And I'm sure that makes your job easier. You can work off each other, and that kind of synergy is really important when you're finding and creating a really high performing home.
It really does. Yeah, Phil and his team, we work together very well. Usually, you know, Phil hits the ground running and makes it very simple for us to come in and work with him and his team on helping with the design, because Phil is 99% there before we get involved even.
So that just really shows how important it is for designers and architects to have this knowledge, just, you know, as strong as well, and used in kind of every step of the process. And a lot of that comes to, you know, specifying a lot of those products too. Like you said, some things you can retrofit later on, some things you can't, but they all come together and make a really big difference. So these were some of the elements that were in this home that kind of made that impact.
So I had mentioned quite a few of these items, and then, you know, of course, we can't forget the low VOC paints. Yeah, Sherwin-Williams and their low VOC paints are important part of the process as well because of the off-gassing, and we want to keep the indoor air quality as good as possible. So that's another contributing factor. And I know Phil and his team look at the rest of the products and the indoor air quality issues on those as well. So cabinetry, so that it doesn't off gas. Anything that's going into the inside space usually has low or no VOC. So very important to have to have that indoor air space. You know, we always used to think that it's really cool to have it the new car smell to a new car. Well, that's really bad. If most people don't understand that that's actually off gassing a lot of VOCs. Well, it's the same with a house. The new house smell really is not a good thing. You really want to come into a house that has really a balanced or no odor that off gases. And usually it's the items that are brought into the house, the furniture, the throw rugs, the bedding. Those are the things that are still in some areas, the manufacturing has not caught up with the indoor air quality requirements. And so you'll still see, and you'll still have that odor in some areas. But if the bones of the house and the actual structure is minimal, then most of the products will off gas usually in about 30 days. So then the house becomes kind of odor neutral. This is just showing what our target preliminary HERS index is, with a HERS index of 52, and we're anticipating the annual energy cost to be around $2,200.
Amazing. And Drew, we actually have a question here from Evan. So, question for you. How do you incorporate or think about ceiling fans as part of the house as a system approach? And do you consider ceiling fans when looking to improve whole home energy efficiency?
Interesting question, because ceiling fans, if a client wants to put ceiling fans in, we definitely want to encourage them to use Energy Star rated ceiling fans. The interesting thing about ceiling fans is they only it's been proven fact that the only time they really work is when you're actually in that room enjoying the comfort of that fan blowing on you. So it's kind of instant gratification, so to speak. If you want it to be cooler and you want to feel that breeze, then you want that ceiling fan on when you're in that room. When you're out of that room, turn the fan off, because it doesn't really, the misconceptions of it actually helping to keep your house cooler and move air around is really a misconception. It's actually using more energy than the positive aspects of running the fan. So we recommend them if a client wants them more for their own personal enjoyment while they're in the room.
Very interesting. Did not know that. Drew, any last notes here on performance of this home, or kind of in general as well?
All I can say is that it's definitely important to do an initial evaluation if you're doing a major renovation, that you have somewhere to start from, that you have a baseline either energy rating or some type of analysis done, so that you know that you're actually making progress as you move through the renovation, and that you're not spending money foolishly.
And would you say that that also helps with the homeowner, maybe trying to convince them to go towards some more energy efficient products as well?
Most definitely. It's definitely something that any remodeling contractor should be doing, because it not only can help prove the point of where the client is wanting to spend their money, but it also may help that builder encourage a client to take it a little bit further because of the end result and what their ROI might be at the end of the day by adding additional insulation or what have you that they may not have thought about. So it's a win-win all across the board.
Fantastic. Please check out these resources here. If you want to learn more about the New American Remodel, you can head there. If you want to learn more about Drew and Two Trails, Phil Kean and his Phil Kean Design Group, obviously NAHB and Pro Remodeler. If you have any additional questions after today's webinar, you can also obviously send me a direct email. I'll get you that answer. I also want everyone to know that the next and the second webinar highlighting the New American Remodel 2023 will be April 12th, and the topic will be project and trade management. And that was another interesting kind of experience in this project. So that'll be a very insightful one. We'll have some members from the Phil Kean Design Group. I thank you, Phil and Drew, for joining us today. Any last words?
Thank you. It was always an honor to be showcasing our work. Thank you for inviting us.
Really enjoyed it, Carolyn. Thank you.